were making the announcements just times to troll each other about if Die Hard was a Christmas movie or not. So, like,
It is.
uh,
No,
a
no,
movie at Christmas does not a Christmas movie make.
But I mean, think of, you know what? For our friendship, I think we're just going to need to move on.
That's fine. That's where me and Leonard landed too.
Welcome to the Enduring Church Podcast, hosted by Nathan Castleberry and Michael Davis, helping pastors grow their churches while equipping the body to love their neighbors. Yeah, their literal neighbors.
We're back. Nathan, how's it going?
We're back, and it's the Christmas episode, and I'm just going to go and start out with something bold.
Oh, no.
We need to give Thanksgiving its proper bandwidth.
Yeah, no, we
not
really
not as a
do.
podcast, as a culture.
No, I agree.
I'm like, listen, I love Christmas. I'm all about it, but December's enough. Can we let November, can we just have the fall be the fall?
Yeah, I thought the Christmas season starts after, I believe, the 4th of July. I think is when it starts. I didn't grow up with Christmas like at all, so I love the hymns, but man, like the Jingle Bells and the Mariah Carey stuff makes me want to stick a ice pick in my ear. So I
Wow.
I know
You took it to a whole nother level.
I am like the total Scrooge, and I used to be worse. So it's the fun stuff with the kids, but man, the commercialism of Christmas is just, well, I also grew up in a house where we didn't give gifts very much. Like this is totally counter to me.
Wow. Well,
yeah.
I thought I had a hot take, but geez, you had a flaming take. So
Hey, I love Jesus coming into the world. That's like the best thing ever. But it's a holly jolly Christmas. Yeah, no, I can. I cannot believe I just sang on the podcast.
That's okay.
Sorry.
I mean, okay. So let me just go like one layer deeper because I need to understand you on this.
Okay.
Does that mean you don't like? Can you enjoy the movie Elf?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, because it's good.
Okay,
but,
good.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, and I like A Christmas Story and a bunch of other. I mean, I like that stuff, but the Christmas carols that are not like direct, like Oh Holy Night I think is one of the most beautiful pieces ever. I will, like, someone who sings it well, I will get teary every single time. But if I hear Jingle Bells one more time, I am going to. There's going to be. Well, there's not going to be violence, but I wish that there would be violence.
Wow. Yeah. So, listen, all I wanted to do was just say that I wanted to give Thanksgiving a little more of like public attention, and then you're like, cancel Jingle Bells.
No, Thanksgiving is like hands down my favorite holiday. Just
Me too.
Because the food.
Yeah. I will say this about Thanksgiving. I deeply, the one thing I don't like about Thanksgiving, and you know me, I'm like a food guy. Like, I'm the one that does all the cooking. I love it.
Oh, yeah.
But man, turkey? Like, come on, founding fathers, you did so much right. But turkey, it takes a crazy amount of work to just be okay. Like, people listening right now, they're like, oh, how can I like turkey? You're more excited about turkey sandwiches the week after Thanksgiving than you are the turkey because of all the condiments and stuff. Like, turkey is that meat that needs other stuff. So I make a turkey to keep everybody happy, but for all the dads that are around the the Thanksgiving table, tomahawk ribeye.
Okay. So when do we start?
Exactly.
I'll tell you. This is my wife's uncle. He actually has figured out turkey to nutshell, and this is just absolutely beautiful. He takes a stack smoker where he has a ham on top, and then it's wrapped up in aluminum foil, but he pokes hole in the bottom so all the fat drips all over the turkey.
The turkey needs all the help that it can get.
Yeah,
that sounds like a really brilliant strategy.
It actually works really, really well. It's absolutely delicious. Okay,
I was trying to get ChatGPT to help me write some turkey jokes, and it said turkey wishes had the confidence of honey baked ham. And I'm like, yeah, that's good, ChatGPT.
That's a good one. Okay, I'm pretty sure that the people listening do not want our takes on Christmas. So let's actually move to church.
Yeah,
Yeah, let's do it.
let's
So
do it.
this is my first question, which is, we're calling, like, is your church doing Christmas right? Right? There's quotes there. So what do you think? What does it mean to do Christmas right as a church?
All right, so this one goes out to all my worship pastors out there. As a former worship pastor that always was forced to just sing Christmas songs in the month of December instead of worship songs, like, I'm not saying we shouldn't have maybe one here or there, but good Lord, we gather together to worship Jesus, not
Yeah.
sing Christmas carols. So my thing is, like, don't turn your church into the Hallmark channel as soon as Thanksgiving is over. Like, yes, we are celebrating the Emmanuel, God with us, the incarnation of Christ, right? But
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that we've just got to turn all, like, we don't have to go totally nostalgic and totally cute and all these things. Like, yeah, have moments of that, like, be festive, decorate, do all those things, but still worship the King of Kings, right?
Yeah.
Like, teach, like, do theology still. Like, this December, we are studying Christophanies the whole month. And it's like, let's serve up some steaks, right? Like, the visitors aren't really coming till Christmas Eve anyways. So December's not like a big visitor month. It's way toward the end of the month. So it's like, you've got people who've got crazy schedules with holidays and sports and all things, and they're still choosing to be there on Sunday morning. So don't entertain them, equip them. So give them some really good ministry.
Thank you for checking out the Enduring Church podcast on YouTube. If you could do us a favor, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon to make sure that you're aware whenever a new episode drops. Also, if you got some time, give us a thumbs up and also leave a comment. It really helps us with the algorithm. Well, now back to the show.
So how do you feel about churches that just completely ignore the Christmas season and just basically preach their series like they're normally doing it, or they're preaching through books of the Bible?
Yeah, I don't mind that. I don't mind from a preaching standpoint. Like, if you're going through the book of the Bible and that's kind of your church's ethos, like, stick with it. But also, like, and we'll probably get more into this in just a little bit. Like, also, don't bury your head in the sand about culture, right? Like,
Yeah.
we become all things to all people. So I think, leveraging the fact that everything is talking about Christmas and like, make it fun. Like, we last year, every Sunday, we were just me and Leonard, our associate pastor, were making the announcements just times to troll each other about if Die Hard was a Christmas movie or not. So, like,
It is.
a
No.
movie at Christmas does not a Christmas movie make.
But I mean, think about, you know what? For our friendship, I think we're just going to need to move on.
That's fine. That's where me and Leonard landed too. So all I'm saying is, like, you don't have to go overboard with trying to ignore Christmas, incorporate it, but, like, find that healthy middle point.
No, absolutely. How do you deal with the culture part of it? Because, keep Christ in Christmas and taking, like, snowflakes off of Starbucks cups caused a bunch of problems a few years back. And
Gosh. Like, so I know we did this, like, politics episode.
Yeah.
So I feel like church, in a lot of ways, not for every hot button cultural issue, but for a lot of them, people's social media is keeping that stuff in front of them. And it's like, sometimes I think you need a little bit of a reprieve, So
Yeah.
it's like, dude, are people really giving a significant amount of their emotional bandwidth to what Starbucks has on their freaking cups, right? So, like,
Yeah.
we just look foolish when that's what we hyperfixate on as Christians, in my opinion. And, like, learn the history of some Greek stuff. Xmas is still Christmas. Like, chill.
You're starting to sound a little Catholic. Like, yeah, what is it? Don't worry about keeping Christ in Christmas. Keep Mass in Christmas. I heard that from one of my Catholic friends. That's awesome.
Good. That's good.
So, I'm going to bring it back to marketing because that's what I do. So,
well, yeah, I think this will be a fascinating part of our podcast.
Interesting. So, I want to get your take first. Is, like, where have you seen, like, some of the best and worst ways that people have communicated an invitation to people who are not members. So like as far as like what's the good marketing and bad marketing from your perspective?
Yeah, so I saw one time, had some friends on a church, and their whole Christmas campaign was "Go elf yourself."
Oh no.
Yeah, yeah.
No.
So yeah, so I don't know what to do.
How
with
do we
that.
move past that? Like
I know. I get how that is like attention grabbing,
Yeah, no, for
right? I
sure.
understand from a purely like advertising, like that's what I studied in college. So my advertising professor always said like disrupt people's expectations. Hey, look, that campaign did it, but it's like, good Lord. I mean, I think you might have gone a little bit beyond in the world, not of the world. That sounds a little bit
Yeah.
of the world, right?
No, for sure. This is my perspective, is that I don't think personally, this is my Scrooge coming back out. I personally don't think that you should change anything. I think that maybe you do a little bit more push. Maybe there is a little bit of paid spend on this one, very light and more focused internal. But I think that a person who's looking to worship Jesus on Christmas, even if they're creasters, and we'll talk about that in towards the end of the episode. But I think that as long as you're reflecting who your church is, whether it's through marketing or through social or through a variety, or even just like equipping your church members to invite folks to coming to your church, I don't think that you should change much of anything.
So I've got a question for you.
Sure.
So this is like real time. I don't know when you're listening to this, listener, but when we record this, it's early mid-November 2024, and so my relationship with Michael has helped me have some better expectations of social media and better understanding of Google Business and that type of stuff. So, you know, I'm right now, before knowing Michael, I would be for the next 6 weeks, like boosting Facebook and doing some targeting and I used to create like a Facebook event for all of those big Sundays just to try to like create some FOMO, and I would even boost those. So you did mention a little bit of ad spend, right?
Yeah.
So maybe just give our listeners out there just some like, instead of like talking about the what, like just help us zoom out philosophically. What are some expectations that we should place on our Christmas promo, our SEO during this time of year? Instead of doing best practices, maybe even like say, help us understand the why behind the what when it comes to messaging, advertising, marketing this time of year specifically.
So I'm actually going to take a step away from what you just said and actually change the question a little bit.
All
I
right.
should go into politics. I don't think it's the what and the why so much when you're first starting out. I think it's the who. And I think that we have to consider the demographic that we are trying to target from a marketing perspective, right? These are the people who are going to show up on Christmas Eve and maybe on Easter, right? These people oftentimes don't plan where they're going to go. They know it's like, they don't belong to a church. We want them to belong to church. We want them to see who Jesus is and what he's done for them. But the truth is there's not a lot of research, not a lot of research done on their part. So there's a variety of different ways that we can think about this. Oftentimes people are going to go to a church, and this is not anecdotal. This is everyone that I've talked to. When they come and they visit a church, almost always it's because someone they know is a member of that church. It's just the way it is. They've been invited. I think that there is a way to do this that is smart and that also that understands that the sales cycle for this, we're going back to sales, is shorter for people who are just going like, oh, it's Christmas Eve, we need to find a place to go. It's very unlikely that they're going to be researching this 6 weeks before Christmas Eve. So what we do, at least from my perspective, I think the most effective way is really, again, you can't outsource this stuff. I keep saying this in pretty much every episode. It is about activating our church members into like, it's the who's your one model, like who is a person in your life that is maybe going to be, and again, not just shifting the tone, not just who needs to know more about Jesus, but who's alone this Christmas? Who is someone who maybe doesn't have family members around, who might feel very isolated? Make this more ministry, and then really activate your church to think about inviting people not just to come on Sunday or on Christmas Eve, but also like who can we pull in for that, a person who is in our life who maybe is just alone on Christmas.
That's
But
good.
there is a possibility also in regards to paid spend of targeting friends of church members or friends of followers who follow your church's social. So, and the cool thing about that, especially in regards to Meta, is that when that sponsored post, like an invitation to come into your church on Christmas Eve, you'll see like, Brandon Smith follows, local church Canton.
We
And then
actually do
they'll
have a
see-
Brandon Smith.
Do you really? Okay, well,
Yeah.
just like a Michael Davis, there's a million. If I could have said Michael Davis, and you probably say that there's a Michael Davis in your church too. But with an understanding that those folks, you don't need that type of like marketing cycle, right? You can do maybe a week before or 2 weeks before. Use that, but I'm not saying to make that spend less. I'm just saying dump it all at once, and then that way the probability of not just your church members being there, and that'll also, again, they'll see that because it's friends and their followers, or followers and their friends. And what they'll do is they'll say that, first of all, that'll remind them that they've been told by you and other people at your church to invite those people. But then they're also going to say, oh, I didn't realize that Brandon Smith attends your church. And by the way,
yeah.
I totally don't know Brandon Smith. I'm sure he's a wonderful person. But that being said, it in a sense activates your members, and also gives people who are maybe friends with a person who attends your church maybe more comfort in coming to them, because then maybe they'll reach out to Brandon and say, hey, I didn't realize you attend local. We're actually thinking about going there, and then he can quote unquote close the deal. That was from a previous episode, but.
So if I'm kind of framing that back, don't put so much effort into the why and the what, but think about who you want to show up, and you're really trying to come at it from a ministry lens more than a marketing lens. And with that in mind, you're thinking about the people that are likely to feel a degree of loneliness and some of the more challenging emotions that come with the holiday season for certain families and households. And then then from a more, so that's kind of a high level thought process.
The who speaks into the why. The who will infer the why.
And then so that's more of like a strategic thought, and a tactical thought is targeting friends of people who follow your accounts, to kind of help those potential visitors know that there's a common thread, and I might bump into somebody that I know there. Love it. That's really, really practical, helpful stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, a lot of folks say, okay, we want to target everyone within a 10-mile radius. And I think the problem with that is you're paying by impression and you're paying by click, right? So the probability of people, especially if you're in the South or in the Bible Belt, right? The vast majority of folks in that area are either just not interested at all in church, or they already have a place that they're going to go to. So it's about having the best return on investment. And I always love when marketing and outreach are interconnected with ministry. And so I always think about who could benefit from this, not just who, how do we potentially serve the creasters in our community, but how do we just love well?
I love that. Love well. Use that as a marketing strategy. Instead of being known for catchy post, just be known for taking care of people. That's good.
Okay, so let's talk about creasters, because we already talked about that.
It's one of my favorites.
How can churches engage creasters, or those who only attend on Christmas and Easter, in a way that encourages deeper involvement and a lasting faith commitment?
So this is like a little bit of a fun thing for me. At the beginning of my sermon on Christmas Eve and Easter for several years now, I have just done a little bit of a light roast of the creasters.
So you're gonna make fun of them? That's
yeah. They seem to love it. It's like, hey, I haven't seen some of you guys since Christmas Eve, but happy Easter. We just we're kind of a snarky, our tone on social media and newsletters has a little bit of that playfulness to it. So
Yeah.
I think that's fun. I love drawing attention to elephants in rooms. That's one of my
Yeah.
favorite things to do. So I just think have fun with it and just like tell people it's like, hey, no, I'm super glad you're here, but I would love it. We would love to be your church home. So I just straight up in the top of the sermon make an appeal to it. But a couple of things just to think through as you're trying to convert some of the creasters to attenders, right? I know the tendency is like we've got so many people in the room. We just need to make sure that we have a gospel presentation, try to get so many people saved. Well, I think we've got decades of historical data that
Yeah.
maybe that strategy's not working so well. Maybe there's a lot of false conversions. Maybe it's a little easy to just like raise your hand at a Christmas altar call and like, again, the Great Commission, make disciples, not make converts, right? So
Yeah.
I think for me, a greater goal and a much more likelihood of seeing salvation experiences happen is inviting them to just come back. Instead of inviting them to trust Christ, invite them to come back for more and then have something worth them coming back, right?
Yeah.
So for me, I'm all like those are the 2 times a year that I'm much more willing to do like a felt need outsider friendly teaching series. So I think, like a lot of times for me after Easter, we will engage in like a relationship or even a mental health type series. I want to speak to something that I know is like a pain point in culture. And so it's like, have something, we're fishers of men. Like this is your chance to bait the hook. So bait the
Yeah.
hook well, have something compelling for them to come back to.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. I think that was Paul Washer said. It's like the sinner's prayer sent more people to hell than all the bartenders or all the bars in the country.
Yeah, right.
But I think that fundamentally, I think that what especially younger folks, what they don't want is inauthenticity, and they're looking for an authentic group of folks that they can feel connected with. And the science and the data behind it is there's no denying it. There's a reason why a lot of the older school churches, or at least the ones that are using some old school liturgy, are really, really impactful and are seeing substantial growth, is because if a church feels inauthentic, and they're just not going to come back. And I'll tell you, I think the churches that I've seen, especially when I got invited to churches as an unbeliever, I don't think churches become any more inauthentic than they are during Christmas Eve, because it's. Oh, go ahead,
dude. You're nailing it on the head. So let's say you do get people to come back. The vast majority of churches I know do not represent themselves accurately on Christmas and Easter. You've contracted all your musicians, you've paid an orchestra, you've got a choreography team. It's like nothing about your Christmas and Easter service is like a Sunday morning service. Now, and it's like, and if that's your strategy, like I grew up in a church that did a big like Christmas play, and I'm actually really okay with that action. Like that's because you're not trying to tell people this is a worship service, but a lot of Easter services and Christmas services are not worship services. Yeah. So if that's your strategy, that's great. Just call a spade. Invite people to your Easter or Christmas production, or invite people to your like that's fine. But don't be surprised when they don't come back, because you went from like this immaculate, amazing thing to 3 songs and a sermon the next Sunday. So like let's represent ourselves accurately. If we're calling it a service, make it a service. I'm not saying that you don't maybe embellish and do some things, like you do have a little bit more permission to do some fun things. We go heavier on worship. I go lighter on the sermon because I feel like our worship team's amazing, and I think that could really be compelling and reel some people in a little bit. But it's still, we just want people's like this. What you see is what you get. If you come on Christmas and like it, you'll get that in January too.
Yeah. Again, I think that as long as, and this goes back to pretty much everything we talk about. If you authentically represent yourself, not just on Sundays, not just throughout the week, but even the way that, if people can talk about you in a way that we say, yeah, that's who we are, that means you're doing it right.
Yeah.
But if anything that you're doing, it's so funny. I had a church that I worked with where legitimately there were no kids and no families at all. It was all, I think the median age was about 94, and it was a dying church. Lovely people, but it was a dying church, and their website had families and had, kids running around, and I was like, if I brought my kids here, would there be a kids ministry for them to go to? Because I'm inferring that there would be. And they were like, no, we could get someone to volunteer and they can go. And it's like, okay, guys, you be authentic. And I think this is where you have an opportunity during Christmas that I think a lot of people don't really take, because what they're trying to do is show how big can we take it, where instead of how much do we reflect the love of Jesus to our community, and how much do we focus on the gospel, and how much do we focus on scripture, and how much is our heart broken for the lost. Like, if you can reflect what your church really is on Christmas and Easter, I think that'll be like it'll draw people in way more than all the production element of the way that a lot of churches do Christmas.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think I think the idea of authenticity is, it's a little bit of a cliche, but there's so much truth to it. Like, be honest about the church you've got, and we've said this
Yeah.
before, not the church you wish you had.
Yeah.
And I think people are going to be drawn to that. It may not be as cool or as slick or as young as you want it to be, but um, I mean, I think I'm just sensing that a lot with Gen Z, is they're not necessarily hoping to find a young, cool church. They're wanting to like see people who are like just real about, where they're at in life and where they're at as a church. And so and if anything, like, if you're authentic and putting a genuine version of yourself forward, a lot of times, like, Gen Z and those young leaders are like, hey, I could help you,
100%. No, I mean, the truth is that our culture is isolating. I mean, and this is one of the reasons why I'm saying, hey, have your church members find the widow, find the person who doesn't have family around, invite them, not just to church, but to celebrate Christmas with you. Maybe not in the morning, because I don't want people to see how bad my kids are on Christmas morning, but maybe in the evening.
Right. Right.
But legitimately, because our culture has become so isolated, where the way that we interact with folks is basically on our phone, that if you can show that your church has genuine community, not genuine production, they get production every single day. The content they produce, that they consume, is very well produced. You are not competing against that, but you can compete with having a church that really loves folks. And I'm going to give one more piece of practical advice. And I have a question that's going to be fun for me, because I'm a theology nerd. But
All right.
before, this is another piece of practical advice. See this when you're dealing with your creasters, especially, but people who you only see twice a year, or people that you have never seen before. See this as a lead gen opportunity. Not in a way of like, I'm going to bother them or I'm going to drop a gift basket off, but as a way of like, this is a top of the funnel lead that has come in, and you have an opportunity to be able to cultivate that lead into something else, whether it's a friend, or even just, let's say you find out that maybe they'd be better connected with a church that isn't you, but find a way to be able to get the people to give you their information in a way that's very light. Don't ask them for their address. Just ask them for maybe just an email address or a phone number and their name. So be very light, because I know every pastor I ever met wants to know their blood type, their address, where they went to school, where their current church is. Don't do that.
How did you hear about us?
Yeah, I know. First name, last name, and a phone number is awesome. Don't even ask them for their email address, because they'll probably just block you.
Right. Yeah.
And
make it easy.
Yeah, make it super easy, and just say, and even say, like, we're going to reach out to you just so we can find out how we can pray for you, or if you've got anything that we can help you with in general, and then use that as a lead. And I think personally, And again, and then maybe not even have the pastor, but maybe just have like a deacon or someone who can genuinely say, hey, I thought you were pretty cool. Let's go out to lunch. Like maybe with the dad, or maybe one of like the pastor's wife, or, or someone else can invite someone, but show them who you are as a church and how you love the community well. But again, see that as a lead opportunity, not necessarily as I'm going to have to throw everything at it. And if I don't close it, well, we'll move on, or we have another opportunity in Easter.
So here's a really, I'm going to add one more layer of practicality to it. This is what we do a lot. We do it at Christmas, we do it at Easter, we do it at big events where we're like, out on a big green space at, where there's a big like amphitheater space outside of the community center where our church is. So we will work out with a local coffee shop, like, hey, we're going to, for these 7 days, we're going to have a tab for anybody that shows you this graphic on their phone. So we worked that out, and the most I've spent on this to date is $40. So it's super cheap.
Yeah.
We have this moment where like, hey, text this number and you're going to get a graphic sent back to your phone in response. And it's going to like give you your next latte on us. And so the amount of people that will text that is big, but the amount of people who actually will follow through and use that free cup of coffee is small. So we've had, 200 people, at one event text in for a free coffee. And then at the end of that week, I go back to the coffee shop. All right, what's it? They're like, $40. So, but then we got lots and lots of names added to our database. So, a little low hanging fruit way to capture some data and make and you're good for it. Like you're good to follow through. If all of them were to be able to do it, like make sure you can pay for it. But I've done it.
Yeah, it's like an $800 bill. It's like,
yeah, dude, I've done this years and years and years, and I've only had to spend $40 on coffee.
That's amazing. Yeah. But again, this is where sales and marketing kind of will sometimes butt heads. We always say, sales will always say, well, we need more leads, and marketing will always say, well, close the leads you've got. Do it well. Do it light, do it authentically. Don't be weird and creepy. Like, this is one of those things where it's just like, let's say you have an opportunity for a date, don't like throw everything out there. Ask light touch, make it a light touch. Maybe, and again, invite them to church. Maybe if they're not the type of people that go to church every Sunday, maybe you say, hey, let's go grab some coffee. As long as, again, appropriately, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, totally.
But it's just, again, be authentic, not just in the way that you're capturing that information from folks. You would love it if like that dollar amount was higher, because people would be engaging with it more and they would know it. So understand that as long as what you're trying to do has a missional focus, and that you are trying to help people and you're trying to love your community better, then you can feel good about it. It doesn't feel like it's a tactical thing that just tries to get, your lead list larger.
Yeah. Yep. That's good. I love how you're the marketer and you're the one that's making all these ministry connection points.
Well,
I'm taking notes over here.
That's awesome. This is what I always tell people. And again, this is for-profit or nonprofit ministry, churches, everything. I was like, you're in this business, or I hope you're in this business to help people. Even if it's a for-profit company, you've got a product that solves a problem. I would say undeniably, the local church there's a problem, and we have the best answer. Yeah. We do. We have the absolute best answer. So if we can always have that missional mindset, not only is that going to be more effective in the way that we market, but it's also going to allow us just to love our community better. And in a very real sense, it's just another way to communicate. Just like we would communicate with them if they've darkened the doors of our church. It's just the same way. Just love well. And then your marketing will do better.
Preach.
Okay, so now this is the fun question, because I'm not going to lie. When I first became a believer and I learned a little bit about the history of Christmas and Yule and all this other stuff, the first question I had was I was like, Christmas isn't actually a thing. Like Jesus was born in the spring, probably. And why are we even celebrating Christmas? Because it's actually a pagan holiday. So I'm assuming you've had that question asked of you. I would love to know how you address it.
Yep. So I constantly revert back to the strategies and tactics of Jesus and Paul.
Okay.
Jesus made his like pronouncement about his church being built on the rock when he literally used a pagan place of worship as his
Okay.
background and his object lesson. You know, he said, on this rock, I'll build my church and the gates of hell can't prevail against it. Matthew 16. Well,
Yeah.
what we now know is that where he took his disciples was a place of pan worship that people literally thought at the bottom of this mountain was this cave that was the gates of hell, you know?
Yeah.
And if I understand it, like calendar wise, like he actually took them there while this pan festival was happening. So Jesus shows up in some deeply questionable places that would probably get a lot of pastors fired for being present at those type things, right? He's like showing up at Burning Man. and then making a pronouncement about the kingdom and the church. So, and if Paul can go to this, you know, pantheon place with lots and lots of gods and idols and statues have been erected for pagan worship, and Paul will be like, hey, this one, the unknown God, let me tell you about him. I think we're okay to leverage the cultural phenomenon, over commercialized hype of Christmas for the gospel.
Okay. So you just that makes a ton of sense.
WWJD, what would Jesus do?
Oh no, we're not going there. No. Okay, I can already. The hate mail is writing itself right now.
I'm just saying, I don't think Jesus would bury his head in the sand at Christmas, right?
No,
Right?
I agree. And the church history. There's a substantial amount of syncretism when it comes to this stuff. But at the end of the day, are we worshiping Jesus and are we celebrating him? You said it at the beginning, him becoming Emmanuel, right? God among us.
Yeah.
And just because maybe the date's wrong doesn't mean that takes away from it. So, okay. Thank you.
Does that help?
No, not even a little bit. But now I've got to go get that what would Jesus do bracelet and then explain that to my pastor. Listen, thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you, Nathan, for being with me and just tackling this stuff. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, well, we figured it all out. There's nothing else left to say.
Absolutely. And look, we're not even trying to figure out an exit. We're just going to go straight into.
No. I think I wanted to say to you, Happy Hanukkah.
Oh, you see, I was not a very good Jew before I became a Christian, so. But I appreciate that.
Ho, ho, ho.
Oh, bah humbug. Have a good one, everyone. Take care.
Later.
This has been the Enduring Church Podcast with Nathan Castleberry and Michael Davis. We'll see you next time.